Hey everyone, it's Ophi from the AstroTwins, and this is how to read your astrology chart. So to begin, you can download our astrology symbols bookmark from this page. That'll allow you to follow along with your own chart and understand what all the symbols, or glyphs as they're called, mean. And if you don't have your chart, you can do a free one right on our website at astrostyle.com/free-chart. And we also have the link below. Now, to do your chart, you need your time, date, and place of birth. If you don't have your time of birth, we have some tips on how you can find it or estimate it. Whether that means you ask your mom or a relative, or you look up your birth certificate, or check with the hospital where you were born. There's a lot of different ways. And if you don't have it, you can make your best estimate or use noon. Without your birth time, you won't know your rising sign or ascendant, and you won't know which houses the planets are in. However, you can get a lot of information about the planets and the zodiac signs, enough to give you a pretty good portrait of yourself. So don't let that stop you if you don't have that. So let's start with, what is a chart? A chart is kind of like a screenshot of the solar system at your moment of birth. So if you were to look up in the sky and freeze frame a snapshot of it, you would see the planets traveling around and all visiting different zodiac signs, different segments of the sky. And that arrangement is unique to you. Only someone who would be born at the exact same moment, including the location, the year, the date, even to the second, will have the same chart as you. Even as identical twins, we're born 4 minutes apart and have a slight variation in our charts. So this is kind of like the instruction manual that they say human beings don't come with. We actually do. Your chart is a map of all your strengths and challenges, and it's a roadmap or a blueprint of your soul and your journey or your mission in this lifetime. So if you ever wondered, why am I here? What is my purpose? You can actually find that in your chart. It's kind of like an owner's and operator's guide. Now, we believe in free will. Human beings have choice, we have consciousness, we have the ability to learn and grow. And so we're not victims of our charts. We're not stuck with this. We can't be like, well, I'm a Sagittarius, so I don't finish anything, or I'm a Leo, so I have an ego, deal with it. That's not how it works. The purpose for learning about your chart is kind of to understand your basic operating system. Are you an iPhone or an Android? Are you a Mac or a PC? Once you know that, then you can start to customize. You can work with what you've learned, add in some self-awareness, and make choices that empower you and work for, living your best life. So that is the reason to know your chart. Think of it as a tool, not something that you're sentenced to being. So the astrology chart is broken into 3 parts. We call it the 3-part puzzle. There are the planets, the zodiac signs they were in at your moment of birth, and then the houses, which are those 12 segments of the zodiac wheel. The planets represent the parts of your nature. They're like the actors in the movie of your life. And then the signs that the planets were in at your time of birth show what you're like. They kind of are like the costumes the actors are wearing or the roles they're playing. And then the house show the areas of life where the action occurs. So you'll notice as you look at your chart, you may have a lot of planets in one house or 2 houses, or they may be scattered all around. There's actually 7 main chart shapes, and the arrangement of the planets is a whole other study. But when there's a planet in a house, that's like having a person in a room or an actor on a set. So you can look at that and see where a lot of the action in your life or the energy may go. So the planets, like I said, are the actors in the movie of your life. So there's enchanting Neptune, that's Elizabeth Taylor. She's a Pisces ruled by Neptune. There's Jupiter, the class clown. There's Mercury, the wordsmith, who sometimes says things that don't make sense, and sometimes they do. The zodiac signs that the planets are in, like we said, are like the roles that the actors are playing. So here's Lupita. So, In 12 Years a Slave, we have the same actress, but she would be sort of expressing more of a Capricorn energy, which is about persistence against odds. And then in Black Panther, she might be acting as more of like a fearless Aries, kind of taking over the universe and saving it from the bad guys. And then the house, again, those are the sort of the sets of the movie, the places where the action happens. So, if you have planets in your 10th house, which is about the professional realm, you might have a lot of activity happening at work. If you have planets in your 11th house, which is about, groups and society and humanitarian efforts and, fantasy, that might be, you might be someone who spends a lot of time dreaming about the future or going to festivals and comic conferences or, dreaming of a utopian world. Um, and then if you have planets in, for example, the 4th house, which is very domestic and settled and suburban, your movie set might look like the movie Carol with a beautiful, well-appointed home, but a lot of sort of secrets happening inside. So let's look at the planets a little more closely. So the planets are divided by what are called the inner planets. Those are the ones closest to the sun. And we treat the moon as a planet, even though it isn't one. But these are the personal planets because they move quickly around the sun within a couple of months maximum to take a journey through every zodiac sign. So they tend to impact your day-to-day life more. The sun shows the essence of who you are. So if you look at your sun sign, you say, oh, I'm a Taurus, I'm a Gemini. What that means is that the sun was in that zodiac sign when you were born. The moon is the inner you. It's your emotions. It's how you react to things. So, your moon sign may be very different from your sun. I have a Sagittarius sun sign, which is fiery and outgoing, but my moon sign is in Scorpio, which is very internal and reflective and likes to research and tinker. So what you'll start to discover as you look at your chart is that you really do contain multitudes. You have all these different parts of yourself. They're like it's almost like a whole family of parts that, some of them get along and work well together, and some of them, how the heck did they end up in the same, bloodline? Just like your own family may baffle you at times, your chart, the family of planets in there may too. And, to have a happy, healthy family working together, you have to learn how to work with everybody's unique sort of ways. So that's, not only do you have to do that with other people, you have to do that in yourself. And that might sound a little overwhelming at first, but it's actually a really amazing thing to discover because when you really look at how you're wired, you get a lot of power. You're very empowered to understand the different parts of your nature. So, your Mercury sign governs your communication style, how you socialize, the kind of friendships you'll have. Very good to know. Venus is love and attraction, style, beauty, what kind of a home you might want. And then Mars rules your motivation, your drive, and your desire. So in your chart, that's what they show. And then also as they're traveling, they represent those different areas of life for everyone too. Then we have the outer planets. These are also called the generational planets because they take from 1 to 15 years to move through a zodiac sign, depending on how far from the sun they are. So, your Jupiter sign, that changes every year. So people born within the same 12-month cycle as you will have the same Jupiter sign as you. So you may all have a similar sort of style of where you're lucky or enthusiastic. I was born in a year where Jupiter was in Capricorn, the sign of achievement, and we had 5 valedictorians in our graduating high school class. We were all a bunch of overachievers. And, after I learned astrology and looked back, I was like, no wonder. Saturn moves every 2 to 3 years. And, it's kind of the opposite of Jupiter. Jupiter shows where you'll take a risk. Saturn shows where you may be fearful, where you may have to sort of come into your own or, overcome some obstacles. But it can also show where you can be a leader or a master because you've worked so hard to really, nail whatever this is. Uranus moves every 7 to 8 years. So that's very much, these last planets, very generational. So it'll show where you're innovative, rebellious, original. You know, the generation in the late 60s and 70s have Uranus in Libra, which is a sign of marriage. This is the generation of divorce and, you know, the latchkey kids left home and that sort of thing, and who are all sort of reinventing marriage and relationships or not even getting married. So, you know, it's interesting. Where your Uranus sign is will show where you may want to change society. Neptune will show where you can kind of be gullible, where you kind of can be a little bit of a sucker, so be careful with Neptune. But it's also like what you get really swept away by, how you're sort of enchanted or enchanting. And then Pluto shows how you deal with power dynamics. It can show, even in a chart, like where you may have had some abuse or trauma or need to do some deep inner healing. And then the north and south nodes, those are not planets, they're points on the chart. And by the way, we still think of Pluto as a planet. It was voted off the island by a bunch of astronomers. There was only, I think, 4% of the people showed up for the vote. So whatever, dwarf planet or not, we still love you, Pluto. Sorry, that was so geeky, but I own it. The north node and the south node are the destiny points in the chart. Not all charts show the south node, but they're always in opposite zodiac signs and opposite houses. So the north node shows what you're here to learn. It's your karmic destiny. It's kind of like your learning curve. And the south node shows what you already came in having mastered. It shows your past lives. We'll get into that more in the course. But these are really fascinating. We have a great post on AstroStyle. If you want to know sort of your bottom line mission of like, why the heck does this keep happening to me? And what the heck am I supposed to learn? Why am I here? Just look at your north and south nodes because they really just bullet that down. It's really awesome. So those are the outer planets. Now let's look at the next part of the three-part puzzle, the zodiac signs. So as we said, the zodiac signs modify the planet. They're the roles that the actors are playing. So they're divided into 4 groups or elements. There's some other ways of dividing them too, but fire, earth, air, and water. So the fire signs are Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius. So if that's your sun sign, you can definitely probably relate to this, but you may have a lot of other planets in your chart in fire signs, or 1 or 2. One thing you can do is count up the number of fire, earth, air, and water signs and score your chart that way, because that'll show you which energy you have, if you're evenly distributed or have a lot of some other. So fire signs are initiators, they're action-oriented, competitive, dynamic, just like fire. They're impatient and restless, and they want to spread everywhere and just take over, so each of these elements has, I think a positive and a negative expression. So we need fire to get the party started, get things going, but too much of it can also burn out and be destructive. Now the earth signs, Taurus, Virgo, and Capricorn, they're grounded, they seek security, they rule the material and physical world, the earth, the tangible things. They're the stabilizers of the zodiac signs. And, earth energy can be really calming and centering, but the shadow part of it is that it can also be very stubborn and can keep us stuck in one place. The air signs, just like the wind that kind of spreads ideas, or the communicators, the idea people, that's Gemini, Libra, and Aquarius. They're social, they're thinkers, they need variety. So, the positive expression of air is that it's always changing and moving and introducing new things to us and willing to sort of talk about things. But the negative is, if you've ever seen a tornado, no further comment needed, but it can be scattered and intense and blow you over. And then the water signs, Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces, it's like water, if you, a nice warm bath, or it can be a tsunami. But they're, in general, water energy is nurturing and emotional and empathic, sensitive, receptive. These are the intuitive signs that feel everything. So, they tend to be very sensitive, but then, the downside of that is that they're oversensitive and can be reactive or fearful or too caught up in their emotions. So, we need all of the zodiac signs. They all play a role. And our job is also to kind of balance it out. So as you look at your chart, if you notice, hey, I don't really have a lot of air, then you might want to consciously go out and do things that are related to air, like push yourself to socialize a little more. If you have a lack of water in your chart, then maybe people are telling you come across as insensitive. You should probably listen. Maybe you need to slow down, not interrupt people, and just like not gloss over the emotional part of things. So it's a really great kind of, we call it Astro Ayurveda. Once you know your chart, you can balance it out. And the zodiac signs follow progression from Aries to Pisces. They go from the self to others. Aries is the baby of the zodiac. Pisces is the elder, youth to old age, personal to interpersonal. Let's talk astronomy for a second. Astronomy versus astrology, because we're not trying to continue the beef here, but NASA, we need to inform you a little bit better. A lot of you guys may remember a couple of years ago, there's this big hype about being a 13th zodiac sign and that astrology was not real because the constellations have shifted and therefore everybody's zodiac sign has changed. Well, no, that is simply not true. And what NASA failed to do was research the history of modern astrology, because modern astrology is not actually based on the positions of the constellations in the sky. It's based on sort of an imaginary belt around the Earth that is divided into 12 equal segments that are positioned based on the seasons. It begins with Aries, begins the zodiac. And the thing that's confusing is that each of those segments of the sky is named after a constellation. But it is not based on where it is. So your zodiac sign has not changed. Just wanted to make that clear. You can continue reading the horoscope you always have, and let those so-called scientists know they need to read up on tropical astrology. So what are you really looking at when you're looking at your chart? We love a unicorn, so we have to add one in here. So it's like, imagine you're lying on your back on the grass looking up at the sky. So it's like you at the moment of your birth, and you're lying right in the middle of the earth, and you're looking up at the sky, and you're seeing all the planets pass. And that is what that's what we're seeing when we see your birth chart. So on the chart, the zodiac signs appear in the thin outer ring of your chart. They're 30-degree, equally sized segments of a 360-degree circle. They're basically the pieces of the sky that the planets are continuously moving through. And like we said, when you were born, it's like someone took a screenshot, a freeze frame of the sky that you were looking up at from the grass, and that is your chart. So what are all those rings on the chart? Put a ring on it, we're talking about. So we call it a 3-ring circus. So the outer ring, that thin outer ring on your chart, that represents the zodiac signs moving around us. The middle ring, which is a crowded area, as you can see, that's where the 3-part puzzle is. That's where the houses and the planets and the signs are represented with their symbols. And then the inner ring, which we're not going to get into in this lesson, that represents the 4th part of the puzzle, the aspects. Those are the relationships between the planets or the actors. So, do they have chemistry? Were they cast well as romantic leads in this, or is the movie going to flop because they have no chemistry? So the colorful lines you see in the middle show whether there's good chemistry or challenging chemistry between each planet in your chart. So that's advanced astrology, but it really is quite fascinating because you can see how to kind of negotiate some of those internal family dynamics happening right inside of you. So here's how it looks in real time when you put a ring on it. So that symbol that we've pointed to is the planets. On the outer part of the middle ring, those symbols are the planets. And then inside of that is the zodiac sign it's in. And those numbers represent the degrees from 0 to 30 degrees of a sign that that planet is traveling through. So in this chart, this is Oprah Winfrey's chart, Jupiter was in Gemini when she was born, which makes sense. Jupiter rules media and publishing, and Gemini also rules communication, and she's the queen of daytime TV and media, so she's definitely true to her chart. So let's look at the houses a little bit more. The houses begin at what would be the 9 o'clock on a clock. You'll notice there's like a thicker line, and so it begins at that exact point, and then the houses move counterclockwise around. So like the rooms in your mansion or the sets of the movie theater. So you begin at that 9 o'clock point and move counterclockwise around. So each house represents a different area of life. The first house represents the self. The second house represents money and work. And we have a link in the resources section about the 12 houses. You can go back and really study up and read more about it. But the third house is your communication. The fourth is home. The fifth is romance and love. It starts to fan out from the self to others. The sixth house is health and fitness and systems and giving. So the 7th through the 12th houses are more about you going out in the world. The 1st through the 6th houses are about, your very personal area. Those are the personal houses and the interpersonal houses, just like we had the planets divided that way. So the 7th house are your relationships. The 8th house is, the kind of the after the honeymoon where you really merge with other people. The 9th house is travel and higher education, going out into the wider world and discovering people different from you. The 10th house, which is at the very top of the chart, is you kind of at the top of your game. It's your professional, career, status, public image, what you become an expert in, what you become known for. And then once you've kind of nailed it there, we go into the 11th house, which is about society and humanitarianism and technology. It's about connecting with others. And then the 12th house, which is the final house, that's a house of endings and healing and closure and letting go and releasing. So it's the whole cycle through the houses is also again about from the very beginning, discovering the world, being born. It's the soul's journey to the ending, and then maybe doing it all over again if you believe in reincarnation. We do. So back to Oprah. Here you can see the house. We were looking at the same planet and zodiac sign. We have Jupiter in Gemini, and it's in her 6th house. I'm sorry that this is not a numbered wheel, but you start with the 9 o'clock and count counterclockwise. So the 6th house is the house of service and health and wellness. Now Oprah has done a lot about well-being, and she's all her self-improvement gurus and that kind of thing. So where she expresses her media savvy, Jupiter kind of inspiration and teaching and wisdom is in the realm of health and well-being and service and advice, the 6th house. Very true for her. So you can also go and look at your own chart, and we have some materials for that. We have a worksheet for that. And we also have a worksheet of this presentation that you can print out and follow along with. Now, the rising sign. So some of you guys have heard of that, or the ascendant, the rising. When you do your free chart, if you know your time of birth, you will get your rising sign. So, and you really do need to know your exact time of birth to be sure what it is. But if you don't know it and you get a couple options and you read up about it, you'll probably be, it won't be too hard probably for you to say, oh yeah, no, I definitely have that. So the rising sign or ascendant is the cusp or the beginning edge of the first house of the zodiac. So this is Madonna's chart, and it's the borderline, of the first house. That's her. So her rising sign, what you would do is you would take, if you were to take a pencil and take that that thick 9 o'clock line, and just draw a line out, extending into that thin outer ring, you would see which of the zodiac signs it intersects. So we see for Madonna, that's Aquarius. So Aquarius is this rebellious, unconventional, trailblazing, humanitarian. So the rising sign represents the face you show to the world, the first impression you make, how people see you. I'd say an Aquarius rising definitely fits for her. You can find your rising sign either by doing your free chart and seeing what the report says, or doing what we said here by dragging that 9 o'clock point out and seeing which sign it intersects. So a little note about houses versus signs. So the thin outer ring of the zodiac signs, those are always equal sizes. They're each 30-degree equal pieces of the sky. But the houses, they're shown sometimes as lining up exactly with the zodiac signs, but in reality, they look like the image on the right. Some of them are big, some of them are small, some of them actually intersect with, they can, like, sometimes even 3 or 4 zodiac signs. Not usually 4, but, or 1 or 2, or they start in the middle of them. So why is that? So that depends on where you were born, actually. So the closer to the equator you were born, the more evenly sized your houses will be. So this is the same person as if they were born in Puerto Rico and Norway. So the person born in Puerto Rico on September 2nd would have pretty even-sized houses on the left. And the person born in Norway, you can see their 12th house and their 6th house are very small, and then the 4th house and the 10th intersect with 3 signs. So if your chart looks like this, you didn't make a mistake. It's based on where you were born. And what that really means is that, if you look at the Norway chart, you can see that the arrow at the very bottom of the chart in the 4th house, that house would intersect with Capricorn, Aquarius, and Pisces. And that's the 4th house, which is the house of home and family. So this person may feel the influence of all 3 of those zodiac signs in their home or in their family. So that would be an interesting life, because they're going to have Capricorn, which is very traditional, Aquarius, which is very non-traditional, and Pisces, which is just kind of woo-woo and creative. So they may have a very eclectic family or that kind of thing. So that's how we start to look at and interpret the chart. And there is a worksheet for you to put it all together. Keywords. We think of the chart as an interpretive dance, so don't try to get hung up on getting it right. Just see what resonates, play with it. And, since most people, we are kind of our own biggest blind spot, sometimes it's hard to understand ourselves. If you get stuck, do someone else's chart, because, you can be like, oh yeah, you are so much like that, So don't just do your own, do like someone you know very well to practice. So you can download the worksheet on the 3-part puzzle and the key phrases. And then, for example, Oprah, her sun is in Aquarius. So the planet key phrase we chose was, I express myself through. And then there was a zodiac sign key phrase for her as Aquarius, groups, humanitarian projects, and TV. Right on, right? So her moon is in Sagittarius. The planet key phrase is, I need. And then the zodiac sign key phrase is enthusiasm, big ideas, a global stage, and so on. So try that out for your chart. Again, remember, this is a learning process. It's an interpretive dance, and you can always go back. We've been studying astrology for over 25 years. There's still always more to learn. It's a lifelong practice, and but just every little insight is helpful for you. So just do it and then road test it. Become an observer of yourself and see if it fits. Try out other people's charts and have fun with it. So hope this keeps you busy and interested and gives you a new little sort of secret decoder lens. It's a little bit of X-ray vision on the people that you know. So remember, not everybody likes to know that you know this stuff about them. So be sure to ask people's permission before you do their charts. or at least don't tell them that you did it. Sorry, Scorpio moon here. And we will see you in the course. Thanks.